The forest doesn't move. It doesn't breathe. It simply waits, frozen in place, buried under a silence so complete it feels unnatural. Beneath the snow, beneath the branches weighed down by ice, men lie hidden in white unseen, and moving, barely alive. Their rifles are steady, but their fingers are not. The cold is already inside them. Hours have passed, and the temperature keeps falling. One of them hasn't moved in a long time. No one checks. No one dares. A thin layer of frost has begun to form over his face, blending him into the ground like he was always meant to disappear here. The others notice, but discipline holds them still. I hear, movement is death. Sound is death. Even concern can get you killed. Then it comes a distant crunch, snow collapsing underway. Another step, closer now. Shapes begin to form between the trees. The enemy is entering the forest, unaware they are walking into something that has been waiting for them, silent and buried, for hours. Before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell me in the comments how long do you think a human body can endure extreme cold before it starts to fail? This unit was deployed to hold a narrow forest passage, nothing more than a frozen corridor, cutting through dense trees and uneven ground. If the enemy crosses here, they gain direct access to the valley beyond. There are no secondary lines, no immediate reinforcements. Just a handful of soldiers placed in silence, ordered to stop whatever comes through. They've been in position for hours, long enough for the cold to settle deep into muscle and bone, long enough for the body to begin shutting down, piece by piece. Every decision now carries weight. Stay still and risk freezing, or move and risk being seen. And somewhere beyond the trees, the enemy is already on the way. 1948. Time no longer behaves like something they can measure. It becomes a weight instead of a sequence. The forest is unchanged, but the men inside it are not. Snow has settled deep around their bodies, turning their positions into something almost sculpted, as if the earth itself is trying to erase them. Every second demands effort just to survive it. The cold has a way of entering without permission. It seeps through layers of fabric, through gloves, through skin that has already begun to numb. Fingers stop obeying commands. Simple adjustments on the rifle become slow, and certain actions that require full concentration, even blinking feels delayed, like the body is resisting its own functions. No one speaks. Communication is reduced to presence alone, a slight shift of weight, a subtle glance, anything that could signal awareness. But even that is fading. The silence between them grows heavier with every passing minute, not because it is empty, but because it is filled with endurance. One of the soldiers tries to steady his breathing, but the rhythm is no longer under control. Each inhale feels sharper than the last. Each exhale disappears too quickly into the frozen air. He focuses on staying still, but stillness is becoming harder than movement ever was. A few meters away, a figure does not respond to the cold anymore. At first glance, nothing seems wrong. This is a position that demands immobility. But time has made a difference that discipline cannot hide. The line between endurance and collapse has already been crossed, silently, without announcement. And yet, no one reacts. The mission does not allow it. The forest remains quiet, but it is no longer peaceful. It is waiting, and so are they, holding a line that is slowly breaking long before the enemy ever arrives. The forest begins to change before anyone sees the enemy. It changes in sound first, a distant compression of snow, barely noticeable at the edge of hearing, like the earth itself is being pressed down by something heavy and deliberate. The soldiers do not move. They listen without reacting, because reacting too early is the same as revealing themselves. Minutes pass like this silent calculation without words. The cold is still inside their bodies, but now it shares space with something else. Anticipation. The kind that tightens muscles already frozen and forces focus through exhaustion. Their eyes track gaps between trees, narrow corridors where visibility is just barely enough to mean anything. Then shapes begin to form, not clearly at first, just movement breaking the uniform white of the forest. The enemy is entering slowly, cautiously, unaware that every step is being watched. Their formation is loose, adapted to terrain, not expecting resistance in a place like this. That assumption is their first mistake. The soldiers remain still, Even now, even with targets in sight, discipline holds them in place. Fingers rest on triggers but do not commit. Breathing slows further, not from calmness, but from control. The distance between the two sides becomes measurable, shrinking with every step the enemy takes deeper into the kill zone. No signal is given, no order breaks the silence. Everything has already been decided long before this moment. The forest is no longer just terrain, it is structure, trap, and boundary, and the enemy is walking directly into its center. One soldier exhales slowly, almost imperceptibly, not fear, not hesitation, timing, because once this line is crossed, silence will no longer be an option, and the forest will finally speak. The first shot does not feel loud. At first it feels like the forest itself has cracked open, a single rupture in silence, so sharp it seems to freeze everything for a fraction of a second before reality collapses into motion. Then the second shot follows, and the forest stops being still. The soldiers rise from the snow as if the ground is rejecting them. White camouflaged figures breaking through white terrain, suddenly visible only through movement and fire. Their positions reveal themselves not by color, but by violence. Each burst of gunfire is controlled, deliberate, calculated in the narrow space between visibility and chaos. The enemy reacts late. Confusion comes before understanding. They were not expecting resistance here, not in terrain this harsh, not in silence this complete. Their formation breaks as soon as the first casualties fall. Some try to find cover behind trees, too thin to matter. Others attempt to return fire blindly into the white blur of the forest. But the defenders are already embedded in the terrain. They do not advance. They do not retreat. They simply appear and disappear within the snow, firing from positions that feel almost impossible to locate. Every shot carries the weight of restraint built over hours of waiting. The cold does not leave them during the fight. It stays inside their movements, slowing reactions, stiffening joints, turning every action into something heavier than it should be. Even firing a rifle becomes a physical struggle against numbness and resistance in the body itself. Still, they continue, not with speed, but with certainty. The forest is no longer silent, but it is still controlled. Every sound now has purpose. Every movement has consequence. And in the middle of it all, the line they were ordered to hold remains unbroken, even as it disappears into smoke, snow, and gunfire. The gunfire begins to thin out not because the battle slows, but because one side is no longer able to continue at the same pace. The forest, once filled with sharp cracks of rifles and collapsing snow, starts to reclaim its silence in uneven fragments. Smoke hangs low between the trees, mixing with breath and frost, making everything feel closer than it really is. The enemy's formation is broken now. What was once coordinated movement has turned into scattered survival. Some attempt to withdraw deeper into the tree line. Others try to push forward out of desperation, but every direction leads them back into the same problem terrain that refuses to give them clarity or advantage. The forest is not neutral anymore. It has already chosen its side. The defenders remain in place. No pursuit is ordered. No unnecessary movement is made. Every soldier knows the line they are sent to hold still matters more than chasing what is already collapsing. Even victory here requires discipline, because the cold is still taking from both sides, regardless of outcome. A few meters of silence return at a time, first between bursts of gunfire, then between distant echoes, until only isolated cracks remain. The forest begins to feel heavy again, as if it is settling after being disturbed for too long. Bodies lie still in the snow, indistinguishable from the ground that hides them. The surviving enemy forces retreat fully now, disappearing the same way they arrived slowly, and certainly swallowed by the trees. No pursuit follows. There is no energy left for it, and no need. The line has held. And yet, the cost is already visible. Among the defenders, not all who stood at the beginning are still standing now. Some remain frozen in place, not out of discipline anymore, but because the cold finished what the battle began. Victory here does not feel like triumph. It feels like survival that came too close to failure. The forest slowly returns to what it was before: silent, frozen, and indifferent. Snow falls over the broken ground, covering traces of movement, struggle, and resistance. It does not preserve what happened here, it erases it. The only thing that remains unchanged is the cold, absolute and unfeeling. As the surviving soldiers begin to withdraw, their eyes drift toward what's left behind. Among the trees and half buried in snow, the bodies of their comrades remain exactly where they fell, frozen in position, still holding their rifles as if the battle never ended for them. No one stops. No one speaks. They only look for a moment longer than they should, before forcing themselves to move on. If you made it this far, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. How long do you think a human body can endure extreme cold before it starts to fail?